Alrighty, we are going live. We're going live on this unexpected Wednesday evening. Well, is to be somewhat expected because it is the spooky month. It's Halloween time, and I am a busy guy. Hi there, everyone. Lars here from Camille's Harem, a channel for novice authors by novice authors because writing is an adventure. It's way more fun with friends. And thank you so much for joining me tonight as we talk about the newest announcements from Glitch Productions, and also as we will discuss some good writing advice and some writing insights in regards to making your monsters into protagonists. And after me saying all of that, I should probably make sure that my audio is actually coming through as it ought to. It's always a bit of a question. But there we go. The audio is indeed coming through just fine. Please no glitches. Please no glitches. Exactly. That's Arts. That's exactly how I've been feeling going into that. Well, good evening, good morning, good day, wherever you are at. Hope that you are having a fantastic time. And thank you for spending some time with me tonight. We've got Arts here. We also got Crisis Adverted at last. Well, thank you for being here, Crisis Adverted. Great to have you here. And yeah, we've got quite a bit to talk about tonight. So I want to kind of get a feel for what people want to start off with. Shall we start off with the announcement from Glitch Productions, or shall we already just dive straight into the Halloween lesson? or various announcements first, just to get those out of the way, which I'll probably have to repeat later for everyone else who arrives a little late. And we got Fabio here. Woohoo! The only glitch that people want are game ones and Glitch Productions. It depends on the glitches in the game. Could be great, could be bad, depending on the game. So again, where would you guys like to begin? With Glitch's announcements, with the Harem announcements, or shall we dive straight on into the writing lesson? As there is indeed quite a bit to get into, and I just like to kind of dive into it, especially because we're getting started a little bit later than usual. But yeah, you don't want that mean old game glitch gremlin or the real gremlins. Technically, glitch is a term for purposeful use of errors, and bugs are unintentional even for users. Okay, interesting. Did not know that. Little technical bits. But so again, you guys must make a choice. Otherwise, I'll make a choice for you, and you might not like where that choice leads us. Because yeah, if you put this entirely into my hands, who knows where we will end up. Oh, and I got my sweet fat honey cat right here. You can't tell me what to do on that front. Oh, yes we can. And you should know by now your choices don't matter. Oh, I just recorded the audio for a Des Holiday Theory video that dives a little bit into why your choices do not matter. Yeah, I think I'm hoping that with this upcoming video that I can maybe not myself put to rest some of the debate around things that are happening in the game of Deltarune, but maybe put things into a different perspective that might prove to be quite helpful to us moving forward in the game. Yes, I tease. You will be showering, so I hope I'll be back in time for the monster time. Okay, you will be showering. Gotcha. All right. Well, you know what? Then let's just get on with the good old glitch announcements. And so for that, I will need to bring up the video. So even though I know that this stuff has already been talked about quite extensively by other people, I am hoping that I can bring in not only my perspective as a writer, but also my experiences with publishing. While publishing is different from making your own show or making your own movie or even making something like a comic or a graphic novel, there are insights that I have that I think I can definitely lend to the discussion around what Glitch is doing, as well as bring in some of the financial observations that are lacking because, well, most people are rightfully thinking about the awesome stories that are being told and just how cool this is that an indie company is doing so well, which is all great stuff. But there is an economic side to all of this. And because so many of the YouTubers who actually get into the nitty gritty of economics for Hollywood are absolutely not paying attention to indie animation right now, I feel like I kind of need to step in and give a little bit of that financial talk because it is something that is very important. It's an aspect of the creative process that we all know exists, but not enough of us want to talk about because it's kind of scary. Let's be honest. Mimic is here. Good night, Mr. Lars and friends. Nice to see you all again. Well, it's great to have you here as well with us, Mimic. Art says, I always saw the Titans as a manifestation of Dessa's ego. Well, that's a cool idea. She took to heart the idealization that Chris and Noelle had to her to the 9th degree as the Knights. Interesting. Well, we'll see what you think. We'll see what you think of my video once it comes out. I'm hoping I can have that out by Friday before I leave town to celebrate a friend's birthday, which is why we're doing this live stream tonight and not on Friday. Hollywood is like the Jedi in the prequel trilogy, and indie animation is like the Sith plotting behind in the shadows. But what Glitch has done by teaming up with Lackadaisy is, oh my gosh, not enough people are talking about what this actually means. I'll get into that. So let's dive in.
Beach party.
Well, first of all, we got this.
Wow, what a good day! Wow.
When it was leaked. But it's always fun to return to it again. Of the Amazing Digital Circus, we get this neat clip for the upcoming beach episode, which, like, the more I think about this, the more it feels appropriate that everything is going to turn really weird during a beach episode, because if you've ever watched old school anime that have beach epissodes, the beach episodes are usually among the weirdest. A great example is Lone Star. Oh my gosh. If you thought that show was over the top and slightly raunchy beforehand, that episode cranks it not beyond 11. It goes to 12. And you're like, how was this legal to air? I like the moon better than the sun is a meanie. Oh, of course, the moon is just
in these glitch directs. We'll be
the moon is just sweet, wants love, is your friend. The sun is evil. Which fits for the Amazing Digital Circus, where things are not what you expect. You'd usually expect that the sun is the more happy and loving of the celestial bodies, but nope, not in the Digital Circus. Important to know that episode 7 drops December 12th, and we're not going to be able to expect the 8th episode until I believe March of next year. So very likely the show will wrap up by the end of next year of 2026, by which time then they're hoping that that the Gaslight District can come out of the gates roaring with the rest of its episodes, and they are hoping to have, at that point, have greenlit Knights of Guinevere, because Knights of Guinevere, as we're going to see, is not yet greenlit, and we'll get into some of the numbers about why that is. So yeah. So March 20th.
It's coming very soon.
And that's very bold of them to already be saying, yeah, we're going to be able to do that. We're going to be able to release that.
December. Episodes 5 to 7 will be available on.
Also, when we finally get the episode drops on Netflix, binge them. I want to see the Amazing Digital Circus again chart, and this time chart for a full week on Netflix, because if so, that is a sweet cherry on top for indie animation.
Netflix as well.
We found out that people just
they're going to release a beach episode in Christmas. How does that make sense? Well, they're down in Australia, where it's going to be summertime. Knights of Guinevere.
Last September, we dropped a new show called Knights of Guinevere, and it did amazing thanks to your guys' support.
It was our first ever 2D show, and at Glitch, every single show we try to make, we're trying to push the art style, we're trying to push the medium of storytelling that we can achieve. And without a doubt, I can confidently say the Knights of Guinevere crew crushed it. And who better to...
All right, so some things that I want to get into right here. 13 million views on YouTube is nothing to turn your nose up at. That is amazing. That is an amazing view count. That is an amazing accomplishment. And it goes to show that Dana Terrace can still pull in people. Because when Knights of Guinevere premiered, all of the other shows that Glitch has done all saw a significant boost. New fans coming over from Disney, exiting the House of Mouse because of how Disney had treated one of their favorite storytellers and artists, came on over, discovered the glories of Glitch Productions, and of course you then have all of the usual fans from Glitch showing up as well. So a merger of two worlds, it did well. Problem is we're going to see 13 million views is not enough to get a show greenlit. If you ever wonder why companies not like Netflix just axe animation shows really fast, it's because if that show is not bringing in the millions of views that they hope it would, it is financially for them not worth it. And even though this is a great story, it's a good opening, and people are excited. I'm excited to see more of Knights of Guinevere, and you can tell by their frozen expressions that they're excited for this ish. There's more. Unfortunately, the business side demands more to it.
Talk about this, Dana Terrace.
Hey everyone, this is Dana Terrace, the co-creator of Knights of Guinevere, along with Zach Marcus and John Bailey Owen, and I just want to say thank you so much.
Can I also just say for a moment right here, if you guys remember, it was a few weeks back, we had a look at one of their other interviews with Dana, and you could just kind of tell she was tired. You can tell she had come out of the House of Mouse. You can tell she'd been working. She looks so good now. And yes, I know she's probably done a little bit of makeup and purdied herself up, but she looks healthy. She looks energetic, which is something I have not seen Dana look like since the beginning of the Owl House. So if looks are anything to go by, Dana looks in a very good, happy place, which means she's enjoying her time with Knights of Guinevere. And speaking as a creator, that already means so much. When you are happy with your project, when you're having fun, when you're having just a great time sharing your story with other people, it shows. You look alive. And I see that in Dana right now, and it just makes me so happy.
For watching the pilot, for the support, for the fan art, for the fan songs. It's really meant a lot to me, to Zach and John.
Yeah, they need to rocket off the stars. Yep.
Enjoying all the hard work that we put into this pilot.
Yeah, working on their own is better than having the constant stress of upper management breathing down your neck. Absolutely.
Getting actual merch for the show.
Okay, what she just said right there, getting actual merch. This is something I've been talking about since I did my theory on the connected cartoon universe. How potentially Amphibia, Gravity Falls, and the Owl House are all connected in one shared universe that their respective storytellers wanted to do. And even though I know all the naysayers are like, Dana never said that, I'm like, Dana might not have. Matt Brawley did. And Alex Hirsch would absolutely have done it because Alex Hirsch was already setting the foundation for crossovers between all of their shows before Amphibia or the Owl House even aired. And you want to know how I know that? Because I read the books that were released and I found all of the Easter eggs to the Owl House months and months before the Owl House even came out, which means that behind the scenes, Gravity Falls and the Owl House were coming together as a connected story. And Matt Brawley really connected Amphibia into Gravity Falls. So these shows are all connected. And I was like, this is a great idea. They should absolutely do this. The problem is that Disney, of course, didn't do it, and Disney missed out on a fantastic opportunity. merch. The Owl House, Gravity Falls, Amphibia were very popular as they were airing. Gravity Falls' creator, Alex Hirsch, had to fight tooth and nail for any official merchandise to be made for Gravity Falls. And when it was made, it was bought out in an instant. It was sold out in a day. Disney could have made so much money off of the merchandise for Gravity Falls alone, but they did not. And they could have made so much money off of merchandise for Amphibia and for the Owl House, especially for the Owl House. The Owl House was made for merch, but it never happened. And so when Dana says we're finally getting merch, this is her in her own way acknowledging just how much Disney neglected a potential gold mine, or at least in greater terms, because Disney, when they think gold mine, they're thinking tens of millions of dollars made, hundreds of millions of dollars made with each project. That's what Disney's always aiming for. However, aiming for gold mines doesn't pay the bills, because you might miss, and if you miss big. Better yet, to go looking for silver. Look for those silver mines. I think, for instance, of the town of Tombstone. The prospector goes on out there looking for gold, instead finds silver, and by finding silver, sure, he didn't find gold, but he found wealth, and a lot of it. So it might not be gold, but silver is pretty valuable as well. And if you think about the small animation productions that Disney has done over the years, that's like silver mines. If you tap into it, if you make that merch, you can mine out so much silver. And that's a lot of extra money in your coffers for other projects, for other things that you can do. So yeah, Disney just absolutely screwed up. And the model of having, and they talk about this later on in this video, about having a model of where your upper management is more focused on selling your merch in order to give more creative control over to the creators, showrunners. That's what you want to have. Upper management should be concerned with how to fund the show, not how to run the show. All right, let's see here. Meg says, yeah, I'm proud of Miss Dana and all of her hard work and effort she's put into her new show. She's awesome and is going places. I agree, and I love it. Art says, damn, she got quite the butterfly on her neck there. A friend of mine at an old job had this giant blue butterfly on her back, but she had to have back surgery. Ooh, yikes. The positive aspect is she got to go to Disney World after she recovered from her surgery. Well, that's nice. Oh, man, I would hate to go in for that kind of surgery. I've already had my feet reconstructed. I don't need any more serious reconstruction or surgeries in my life.
These things are. I just want to say thank you. Thanks for watching. And thank you, Glitch, for this.
Thank you very much, Dana. And at the moment, we're looking at greenlighting the full season of Knights of Guinevere. If you want to show your support and help contribute to the greenlighting of the season, you can consider getting some merch. This is definitely real. We're on a blue screen, so we had to edit this in, but just pretend it's real. Get the merch at KOG.
I could be Mr. Frankenstein. You should see the scars on my feet. Now then, I'm stopping right here to talk about business. Oh, you will love business. It is the American way. I love that line. I love that line from Muppets Christmas Carol. So what they said here is very important. We are looking to greenlight Knights of Guinevere. They want to greenlight it, but it needs to be financially worth it. It needs to be financially viable. Not necessarily that they need to turn a massive profit. That's what the Amazing Digital Circus is doing for them, but rather that the show's creation must be sustainable through a combination of enough views and enough merchandise being sold. And we're going to get into more of these numbers when we get to Lackadaisy. Oh boy, the business. Now then, as I've already discussed before, but if you're new here, this is your first time coming around, something you should know is that at bare minimum for industry standards, for the creation of a 2D animated show requires $300,000 minimum per episode. So $300,000 minimum went into making Knights of Guinevere. I feel confident in that number because you can see the quality on screen when you watch it, And on top of that, Glitch does pay competitive rates to their workers. It's one of the reasons why they've been able to avoid so many scandals, is because they're taking care of their artists, of their employees. So $300,000 at least went into the making of this first episode. That's a lot of money. That's a stinking ton of money. Very, very few people have that much money just lying around. So how do you then make back that $300,000 and make sure that you can continue to go forward and make more episodes without putting yourself into the red? Seriously into the red. So per million views on YouTube gets you at least $1,000 up to as much as $6,000 per million views. As much as I would love to say that Glitch is getting $6,000, the maximum per million views, they're probably not, because there's always people who check out too early from the episode, lowering the average view rate or duration rate, which then lowers the amount of profit that you make off of that video. So, to be, I think, fair with how much they're probably making per view for Knights of Guinevere, this is, again, my guesstimate. I don't know this for certain because I do not know the numbers that Glitch is working with behind the scenes. They will not reveal that. But through my own experience working on YouTube, they are probably making anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000. Make sure I actually put that in right. $3,000 to $4,000 per million views for Knights of Guinevere. Okay, so you get that. Let's say that they're getting $4,000 per million views. Excellent. They got 13 million. Woo! So 13 times 4,000 equals, drumroll please, a grand total of $52,000, which only gives you about a sixth of what they invested into the one episode. They need to make back $250,000. That's a lot. That's a lot of money that they got to make up. They're going to make it up in merch. This is something that Glitch has said, that their model is 80% merch sales and 20% ad revenue from YouTube is what makes up the budget for each episode of one of their shows. So, in order then for Knights of Guinevere to be greenlit, you must make $250,000 minimum in merchandise sales. So let's start breaking that down. Now then, the merch that they sell is not super cheap. It's not. Let's just be honest. Now then, they probably get, I'm going to say that they probably get about $5 maybe. Well, we'll just make that a nice $5 per sale. So when you break that on down, 250,000 divided by 5 equals 50,000. What that means is they need to sell at least 50,000 pieces of Knights of Guinevere merch in order to fund the next episode. That is what we're looking at here. That can be done. If you take it, so if you take even 1% of the people who have watched Knights of Guinevere, at least 1% of the views, you're then looking at 130,000 people who could have bought one of the little blue ladies or one of the posters, one of the keychains, one of the plushies. And if that's the case, you then are able to fund the show. Dorcas Daydreams, are we still talking about Monster Pro Tags? We are getting there. We are first talking about Glitch, and then we're going to have our writing lesson for the night. So you are in time. You haven't missed it. I says, I may have accidentally pre-ordered the $100 Murder Jones graphic novel pack and $50 worth of add-ons. May have accidentally, it accidentally happens, spending $150. I mean, who doesn't? on occasion when they're not looking, when they're asleep. Meg says, "Oof, being a content creator truly is a business. It is. It is a business. If you eat it, like if you're doing it just for the absolute fun of it and you don't care, awesome. But if you're trying to sustain that, and if you're trying to get money off of it, if you're trying to get a living off of it, holy cow, it is a business, and it is incredibly draining. It's one of the reasons why Camille's Harem is kind of all over the place, because we just do whatever we feel like we want to do, so that way we feel emboldened to make our content without feeling burnt out by the fact that we're only making pennies off of our videos." Art says, "I know it would take me years to make that kind of money on my current job." Oh yeah, back when I was working as a teacher, oh man, that would have taken me, let's see here, to get that. It would have taken me 24 years of saving to make enough money just as a teacher to then pay for one full professional episode of a cartoon show. Wow. I accidentally go to the Pokemon Center every other week. Yeah, you know, like it just happens. And next thing you know, you're walking through the front door. It's like, wait, what? And then Pikachu takes you by the hand and guides you on over to the aisles, and you start buying stuff. It just happens, you know. So, coming back around to it, if you really, really, really want Knights of Guinevere to be greenlit, you need to buy some merch. If enough people buy merch, boom, the show gets made, and there we go running. In my previous assessments that they had enough money from the Amazing Digital Circus to make this happen no matter what, my assumptions got blown out of the water with the announcement at the end of this video.
No pressure at all, though.
On to the next thing.
Murder drones. So we get to return to the world of Copper 9 and of Murder Drones with an upcoming music video. It is sadly not a second season. It is sadly not a series of shorts like I know ISO wanted, and it's not more stuff to go with the graphic novel. But this music video right here, as we can already see, we already get a glimpse, this takes place after the events of the finale. So, oh, that's interesting. We're going to see where this takes us. Because all of my theories about what the ending could have meant might just get blown out of the water when the music video drops. I hope I can make a video about that when we get the chance, because I think it's just going to be a whole lot of fun. And yeah, it's coming out in just 2 days. Woohoo! Less than 2 days at this point. So yeah, and of course the graphic novel is coming out. ISO and I have both chipped in to support this, and I'm very interested in seeing what we get in graphic novel form. I have a feeling that there might be some little Liam tidbits here and there that might shine some extra light into what's going on in the story. Just because it's a music video doesn't mean there won't be lore. Exactly, ISO, exactly. And then we come back to the Gaslight District. The Living Tombstone is the exact fit for a Murder Drone song. Oh yeah, just the name alone, but the music, yes.
And up next, we have our most recent 3D pilot, the Gaslight District. Here we have Nick to run you guys through some sneak peeks and behind the scenes.
Hello, freaks.
Thank you,
and
Part-Time
weirdos.
Seagull.
Nick Supco here. Pre-production is deep underway, which means we're zeroing in on the show's dark heart. Intimate family drama and grime-soaked world building. Each episode will drag one character from the Smiling Dead into the spotlight and shove the family into a new, grotesque corner of the world.
So I'm just going to pause right here and say, I like this. I like this approach to episodic storytelling, because I actually was worried that the Gaslight District would not be able to sustain long-form storytelling with what it presented. And by the sound of what we're getting, especially once we get into the details of the upcoming episodes, with at least 4 episodes focusing in on each member of the gang, we get a chance to really get to know who they are and see different corners of the world. giving us, I hope, then the context for the bigger overall story. This kind of feels a lot, to me at least, the way it's being pitched, like Cowboy Bebop. Cowboy Bebop had a ton of standalone episodes, but when you start combining the elements of those standalone episodes, it gives flesh to this overall world and gives you an idea of these characters, so that you better understand them and their actions and what's happening when we get back into the very plot-heavy episodes of Cowboy Bebop. So, I mean, that's a really good approach. However, as much as I know a lot of people love Cowboy Bebop, we here at the Harem, we're weird. I know that we go against the grain, but none of us like Cowboy Bebop. At least the way that it ended. I cannot stand the way that Cowboy Bebop ended. I felt it was a real betrayal of each character and just simply ended because it was living up to this strange ideal that was already antiquated by that time, of that if a story has a proper ending, there's no more value in it. And yes, that's an actual thing. It's an actual thing out of Japanese storytelling and Japanese lore. A solid ending ruins your reason for returning to the story. That is the old school philosophy. And Cowboy Bebop was absolutely wrecked by that philosophy. Did I watch the live action version? I have not. I did not watch the live action version, in part because there was a whole bunch of drama surrounding it. And I'm like, look, I'm already exhausted. I don't know if I want to do this. And plus, again, because I felt like the anime itself already let me down. I don't know if I want to go back and rewatch it via the live action version. If I do ever do that, I want to do it with people that I can just sit back and have a good long chat while eating popcorn while watching it. It's all right, just all right. Oof, okay. Camille's harem be like, we're not like the other harems. Oh no, that we are not. Cow Bebop boy. Nice.
Here's what I can say about the first few episodes without giving too much away. In one episode, Ken will find himself the victim of a wish from a monkey's paw.
There's no Ed. Oh yeah, that's right. There is no Ed
trail of
in the live action one. That's so weird.
Guests, litter bugs, and finally, Mud will take the reins and bet everything on a horse named Death. That's all I'll say for now.
Cash
mummy. Whispers from the void.
That's a real cash mummy right there. Let me tell you.
Future episodes will slow down to really let that dread sink in. So until next time.
Yeah, and not just for the dread, but also because they put a whole lot of work into this show.
And to be fully
Holy
transparent
cow.
with you guys, as you probably saw, this is a beautiful and complex show, which just means that it needs a lot of time in production. It will still be a while before we see more episodes come out.
Our 30 team also need to finish Digital Circus first, so please be patient. It'll be worth it.
Yeah,
So
that was very interesting for them to say that we're not getting any more Gaslight District until the Amazing Digital Circus is wrapped, which makes it all the more interesting that we're waiting so long between episodes of the Amazing Digital Circus. But again, it's all for the quality. And to be all honest, I will take that quality in order to enjoy the show to its absolute fullest. Don't rush it. Don't be like the big budget studios, which just hack and slash and say, we'll reuse stuff. Or it's okay to get lazy here. Because, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. Yeah, give us more Digital Circus, my lads. We're going to get there.
And let's go on to the next segment.
And that comes the end
So,
of the Glitch Direct.
it's
Thank
all
you
for the
watching,
good cause.
everyone.
Indeed it is.
Oh, and before we go,
I also want to see what
one
happens after
last
episode
thing.
6. I am
Aren't you
so
rolling
anxious. Okay, so before we continue with this right here, so I showed this to my youngest sister as I was helping get her home, and so I was playing. She's like, "Oh, that's nice." And I then said, "Glitch is supporting them." She's like, "What?" And I'm like, "They're getting a full season," and she started breaking down in tears. She was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so happy!" Because my youngest sister is more into the traditional 2D animation, and Lackadaisy absolutely represents that callback to old traditional style animation, and it's just gorgeous. You showed your sister a dark screen? Yes, I did. Actually, I didn't really show it to her because she was driving. I played it for her, and then she, whenever we were at a stoplight, she would catch a glimpse. I wish I could go back and again experience the goosebumps I felt when I first saw this. Because I was like, no. I was like, Glitch is real, because I knew that Glitch had already been partnering with Iron Circus to get Lackadaisy made by giving them a cut of their merch sales. But come to find out, it wasn't just that, but they had already for over a year been working with Tracy Butler to organize an actual collaboration to make this happen. And it makes me so happy that we're getting more of Lackadaisy, because it is such an incredible story. It is riveting, it is gorgeous, it is heartbreaking, it is funny all at the same time. Holy cow. This is reminiscent of what Disney used to be. It is. And here's the thing, you can see just how clean this is. If you go back and rewatch the pilot still has a lot of tracing lines all across the characters. They released it rather raw, but it still looks so beautiful, even in its more raw state. This is cleaned up. This, as Art says, this is reminiscent of what Disney used to be. This feels like if you go back and watch the animation of Mulan and Tarzan, even though those are ultimately different finished styles at the end, the smoothness, the detail, just how alive everything is on screen in those movies, that is exactly what is happening in this clip. It is just, the word for it is gorgeous. Also, this is just such beautiful music. It makes sense, too, especially since Lackadaisy takes place in the roaring 1920s. The animation is truly outstanding and quite sexy. Yes. Yeah, the quality. Just, so good. I mean, you look at that shot right there, there's only like two characters who aren't immediately moving. It just feels so alive.
That's right, we are so excited to officially announce that we've partnered with the Lackadaisy team to produce and bring you guys the Lackadaisy animated series.
And we have the creator Tracy and director Fable here to tell you more about the partnership.
Hi, I'm Tracy, the creator of...
Oh, I just got to pause right there to just read what Art says right here. When I think of Disney's Tarzan, I thought of the waterfalls in the background, the vines as Tarzan slides down them. It's alive. It is. It's so amazing. Something a lot of 3D animation lacks. Yes, unfortunately so. And one of the things that I love with Tarzan is how Tarzan blended 3D animation with still hand-drawn and hand-painted animation. So you can tell how things are moving, that it's not your traditional 2D animation with the background, with some of the environment, but it feels just, again, so alive and still feels so 2D because of the love and effort that went into something like Tarzan. Or when you look at even Treasure Planet, which Disney did dirty, Mulan, that kind of love and attention and skill is there on the screen with Lackadaisy. And what they're going to discuss right here explains why. Because if you thought that Knights of Guinevere looked good on a $300,000 budget, they tipped their hand here and show just how much money they were putting into this show, and it is jaw-dropping.
Lackadaisy.
And I'm Fable, Lackadaisy's director.
For those unfamiliar, Lackadaisy is a Prohibition-era crime drama featuring jazz, speakeasies, and a whole lot of gangster cats. It started as a webcomic and grew into a full-fledged animated pilot thanks to an incredibly passionate fan base.
After the pilot,
It's really 20 years old for the comic. That's incredible.
That support means
That I did not realize it was just that old. Okay, so I need to bring this back just a little bit right here. See that number there on the screen? I'll even put it right here again. We're looking at $2,008,728 into 5 11-minute episodes. Now then, the reason why I must stress this right here. 55 minutes. 55 minutes is right about as much as double the amount of time put into your traditional 22 to 25 minute episode for any given show. Knights of Guinevere was around the 25-minute mark, and we're looking at about $300,000 worth of investment at least into making the pilot episode. $300,000 still a lot of money. Now then, so all of that $2 million plus went into making 55 minutes worth of footage. What that means is that Tracy Butler and her team were not putting in $300,000 per episode. They were going for the more industry standard, not where like $300,000 is El Cheapo show. What they were going for is what Hollywood normally spends per episode, and that is $1 million per episode is your typical industry standard. And that is the money that they put in. They're like, okay, we got the $2 million. What are we going to do with that? We are going to make quality. It's not just a koala sipping its tea. We're doing real quality work. That, for an indie production, is insane. To my knowledge, and I might be wrong here, but to my knowledge, no other indie production that has been paid for by the fans, done by indie creators and indie artists, has ever done $1 million budget per episode. Now, what gets crazy here is this. They're announcing 6 full-length episodes for season 1. And it's important to stress here, season 1, and not Murder Drones season 1 kind of season 1. We're talking the first of what hopefully will be multiple seasons, because the story is big. You can easily have multiple seasons based on everything that Tracy Butler has already written and drawn, and she hasn't even finished the story yet. Dang, those animators must be getting paid. They are getting paid. They are getting paid true competitive wages. That is great to see. Because if you're going to have people working for years of their lives on making this happen, you better be compensating them appropriately. Now, what this means is, so looking forward, and they're not going to throw out these numbers. These are numbers that I know based off of what they're saying and based off of what they're showing. We're looking at a $6 million production of Lackadaisy. This means that Lackadaisy, again, if I'm correct in assuming that this is one of the biggest budgets that's gone into any indie show, that would make Lackadaisy the most expensive indie show of all time. But this is where it gets interesting, because the number, that $2 million number that you see there on the screen, that was already provided for by the fans, that they can already cover. Now Glitch steps in, but other people also begin to step in, and there's more to it on the business side.
campaign to fund a first
So,
season,
let's get into
raising
it.
enough to fund 5 10-minute episodes.
That support means the world to us, and it allowed us to jump right into development on the season with full scripts, character art, and storyboards. Then Glitch came along and, how should I say this, made us an offer we couldn't refuse, in a good way. They saw what we had made so far and wanted to be a part of it too, so they offered to co-produce Lackadaisy as a Glitch production with more episodes, more minutes, more music, more everything. So of course we were overjoyed to accept.
Not only that, but delivering hand-drawn animation at the quality expected of Lackadaisy, and to do it with a happy crew, requires a lot of extra stuff behind the scenes. HR, IT, marketing, merchandising, admin, etc. If that sounds like a lot, it's because it is. Honestly, it's a struggle for a small indie team.
Yep.
So partnering with Glitch lifts a huge weight off of our shoulders.
This is the best of all worlds for us.
Yeah,
We get
because Glitch already has the infrastructure. Glitch has the infrastructure to focus on advertising, HR, and merchandise. Merchandise being the big one. Remember that Glitch's philosophy is that the merchandise covers 80% of the cost. Now, things are a little bit different here with this because they are going in already with full production. They're investing at least $6 million into production. That is $6 million in the, well, that's because $2 million has already been covered by the fans. That means $4 million into the hole, $4 million into the red that has to be made up. Now, this is where, again, things begin to get interesting right here because this is the game changer. I've already talked about this before, that in this decade, in the 2020s, we will see the scene shift. And with Lackadaisy, the scene is shifting in favor of the independent creator. And yet it's being funded by the establishments, as we will see them explain.
to make a show with the incredible folks at Glitch and their creator-driven indie philosophy. Glitch's merch and marketing team free us up to concentrate fully on the creative side of things, and we can do it all with a full-size TV budget.
And to help steer this whole thing alongside us, we've been joined by none other than...
Hey everybody, my name's Olin Rogers. You probably know me from a show called Final Space. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I really think Lackadaisy is just special. I think it's got the characters. I think it's got the world.
Olin Rogers, my
story.
boy.
I think it's got the art. It just looks so good. To have an animation studio work this kind of deal, not just for them, but for a first-time creator, to ensure that they're protected and that they're getting their vision across, get out of here.
Okay, so I gotta pause this again because this is important. Olin Rogers, and this makes me so happy, so happy. This is Olin's revenge, and in the nicest way possible, because it's not that he's taking his pound of flesh that he rightfully deserves out of Hollywood, but by paying forward his experience. He was the creator of Final Space and got absolutely screwed over by TBS. TBS wrote off his show for a tax break, killing it, and leaving him without a job and basically making him homeless shortly thereafter. And it ruined him. Olin Rogers was broken at the end of that. His comeback has been very inspiring to watch. And you know what? Him becoming an executive producer for this show and basically being the liaison and brains to dealing with Hollywood, because they have to partner with a Hollywood company in order to make the show actually happen, is genius. Because he now knows the ins and outs of Hollywood better than Glitch does, because he has lived through the absolute worst of it. So he gets to return to Tinseltown with executive producer on his lapel, and he is like, I'm back, baby. I mean, I wanted more episodes of Haunt Hounds, but by golly, I will give up those episodes of Haunt Hounds to have Olin Rogers help Tracy Butler and Glitch take on Hollywood in order to make Lackadaisy happen. Oh, I love it so much. Probably as in my mind, it makes sense in some sort of way for a most funded indie series to at least visually remind us of the past's shiniest animated gold. I agree with you there, Fabio. TBS is truly demonic for doing Olin's like that. Shake my head. Oh, yes. Yeah, what TBS did was it was brutal. He was so betrayed. So for him to come back with this is just, it's amazing. Now then, again, getting into business, we must continue.
It's insane. That doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen, right? I said, look, I got to be a part of this. I want to help. And I think this is just one of those things that I think it's going to be a very, very cool experience. And I think it's going to be very special. And I think this show is going to be special.
And Glitch has been true to their word. We're making the show that we want to make.
And it's being made by the same core crew and voice actors who brought you the original pilot and animated shorts.
We're still deep in production, so we don't have an official release date just yet, but rest assured we're working our tails off. We can't wait to show you what we've been cooking up. Thank you so much for all of your support and for sticking by us. None of this could have happened without you. A massive thank you to the entire team at Glitch, too.
I just
thank you, Tracy. and
I just
Fable.
feel so
I'm
happy because
excited
I'm one of
about
those
this
people
journey.
who donated
When we saw the
money
uphill
to
battle
make
that
this
not
show happen.
only Tracy and Fable, but the whole
And
animation
it just
industry
it makes me so
were facing.
happy.
Just to get these projects made, we knew we had to help.
And that's where our new label comes in. Glitch Presents.
Glitch Presents is the banner for shows where we partner with incredible teams who already have amazing projects and we help bring their full vision to life, especially in this tough animation industry.
Meanwhile, the shows we fully self-fund ourselves, like The Amazing Digital Circus, Gaslight District, or Knights of Guinevere, that falls under our label, Glitch Originals.
Here's the reality. Animation is expensive. Really expensive. And we're already funding several.
Okay, so right here, they are correct. Animation is very expensive. $300,000 to $1 million per episode. Whew! That is super expensive. You don't have that kind of cash just lying around. Fun fact, though, that kind of money is actually pittance compared to live action shows that are made. Live action shows are more expensive than the animation that they are cranking out at Glitch Productions or at Iron Circus or even over at Spindle Horse, which goes against what Hollywood has said for years, that animation is just too expensive. Here is the thing. Animation is too expensive for how Hollywood now does business, where everything is scrapbooked, where the producers are always constantly changing the story again and again and again. Imagine if you had to redraw one scene, not just your typical 100 times to get it just right, but now you have to multiply that by every time the producers tell you to change something, which could be up to as many as a dozen times. That means that one scene gets redrawn over 1,000 times. That's a waste of manpower, of memory space, or if you're doing it by hand, all of this product. That is what makes animation expensive in the eyes of Hollywood. If producers would back off and let the creators do what they want to do, it would still be expensive, but it would not be as expensive as they fear it would be.
Original shows already. To help bring these partnered shows to life, we work with external partners to ensure we can cover the massive costs with long-form animation.
In return, these external partners may ask for exclusive streaming rights. So yes, Glitch Present shows may appear on external streaming services instead of for free on YouTube.
But that's exactly why Glitch is here, to shield the creators from the uncertainty and instability that comes with corporate Hollywood, and to guarantee that creative control stays with the creators.
And don't worry, Glitch Originals will always still continue to be for free here on YouTube.
All right.
Things we sell.
So they are partnering up with others. And the interesting thing is that the language that they used previously could mean that this outside provider is either Amazon or Netflix. It could be another studio. It could absolutely be another studio, but they already have a deal with Amazon, thanks to Merge Drones, and Netflix gave them the sweetheart deal, the amazing deal that broke precedent with the Amazing Digital Circus, allowing them to have full control over their show. Now, they have to focus on merchandise. And as far as I know, both Amazon and Netflix have both allowed Glitch Productions to have full control over the merchandise, which is very important. So what Glitch is going to do, as far as Lackadaisy is concerned, is they are going to make sure that Lackadaisy receives the other bit of funding that it needs in order to go through. And they will sacrifice streaming rights for merch rights. And if they can do that, that means that whichever provider they're working with, Netflix or Amazon, gets to have all of the streaming revenue. And in exchange, if Glitch pulls off what I think they're actually pulling off, we'll see when the next episode of Lackadaisy drops, if this is the case. But if they maintain control over the merchandising rights, they will have won in an insane way because the money is in the merch. Now then, to think about how much have they put in order to sweeten the deal and get either Amazon or Netflix or maybe someone else to consider Lackadaisy. Lackadaisy already has $2 million for at least the minimum $6 million budget. So it means a third of it's already covered. Thanks to the Amazing Digital Circus, having raked in millions of dollars off of views and merchandise, Glitch can easily shift upwards to $1 million into the pot, giving them a concrete stake. Or, very likely, and this would strain their budget, and this might explain also why they are taking their time to make sure that the Amazing Digital Circus does so well for its last 3 episodes, and why they're not releasing anything else. There's a very good chance that Glitch Productions put up $2 million of the budget themselves, which then means that the other remaining $2 million would be covered by the studio. That means that every party involved has an equal stake in what goes on. And this is the way you then split it. For their 1/3 of the budget, Tracy and her team gets full creative control. For their 1/3 of the budget, Glitch gets merchandising control. And for their 1/3 of the budget, the studio gets exclusive streaming rights and control. That is very likely the deal that was struck. Now, there's a whole lot more that goes into it, and granted, this is me speculating. But I feel very confident in my speculations because that's probably what they did. Because if you're looking at $6 million, we know that 1/3 of it's already covered thanks to the crowdfunding for Iron Circus and Lackadaisy. We know, going back to the numbers for what the Amazing Digital Circus has done, that the Amazing Digital Circus has exceeded its budget on views alone. And that with the merchandise that's being sold, and by Murder Drones continuously making money with more millions of views going to it and even more merchandise being sold, Glitch has the money. But what this now means is that Knights of Guinevere and Gaslight District actually have to carry their weight, which is why Knights of Guinevere has not been greenlit yet. Because I was like, oh yeah, they've got easily over $1 million in the bank. They could greenlight Knights of Guinevere tomorrow. They're just going to wait until they can show that's profitable, so that way they can then move forward. But in this deal that they are making with Lackadaisy and with this other distributor, they're putting in big money. And the reason why they're putting in big money is because they're betting big. They're betting that a show as gorgeous as Lackadaisy will do well on a streaming service. And if Lackadaisy does well on a streaming service, 2/3 funded by an indie production, and then making bank with merch, this will effectively show a way forward for animation and indie animation to actually be incorporated into the mainstream and to be profitable and viable for big Hollywood studios. What will effectively happen if this works out is that Hollywood studios in the near future will start contracting to indie creators to have their shows made. And if indie creators can band together like they are for Lackadaisy right now, that means that those shows will maintain their creative freedom behind the scenes, which is monumental because right now Hollywood steals that from you. So things are changing. If Lackadaisy succeeds, it will set a precedent that will change the entire animation landscape as we know it. And alongside Has-Been Hotel and the Amazing Digital Circus will pave a way forward for indie creators all over the place because precedent will be set and contracts can then be written based on that precedent in the indie creator's favor. And that is why this is so big. So if you want to see this work out, you have to continue supporting these shows. If you're someone who wants to see the establishment shaken up, you have to support them. If you want 2D animation, 3D animation to go far, to continue to go far and receive all the love that they need, you need to support these shows. If you want to support indie creators because you are one and you just love them, you got to support these shows any way that you can. And that will be how all of us truly reshape this entire scene. And it's amazing. It's beautiful. And I called it. I called it years before this even happened. Yes! I'm not always right with my theories and with some of my insights, but when I am, I love it. The amazing deal Gittle Circus. Nice one, Fabio. Nick says, yeah, not to mention that Hollywood already has all the resources to make animation successful. They just need to actually let the artists have full control and creative freedom. Amen. And they get a Hollywood insight and support from Olin Rogers. I'm not sure how to spell his name. There's just no D at the end of Olin, Mimic, but you're doing good. Lackadaisy is truly in great hands. Oh, it absolutely is. And I love Olin. And Olin is going to do his best to help them out. I mean, the guy was able to save what he could of Final Space from the pit, from the depths of despair, and the pits from the pit of despair. He was able to save it because he navigated the intricacies of Hollywood legalese and managed to give Final Space one last breath of air by allowing a graphic novel to be created. It's amazing. The fate of the world is in your hands, Lackadaisy crew. Y'all have my votes. Oh, excellent. So yeah, I hope that we can continue to support Glitch and all these projects going forward and other indie creators as well. Because there's others who are much more small time than these guys who also deserve our love and attention because they're doing a great job as well. And yeah, my hope would be that every storyteller is honestly trying and putting themselves out there would have a chance to be recognized. Because, I mean, that's what I want for myself. But yeah, I firmly stand by what I say, that you need your stories need you, and the world needs your stories. The world really needs good stories right now. We need good storytellers. And I think that this is a very, very positive step in that direction. So, that is all. That is my, that is nearly an hour long's worth analysis and gushing of a, what we have here. Not even 13-minute long video. So, with all that said, let's shift gears on over to our writing lesson. Yes. Making monsters your protagonists. Love it. All right, so our goals for tonight, as far as our writing lesson is concerned, we want to better understand what a protagonist is. And then we want to understand how we can turn our monsters into those protagonists. Those are our two goals for the night. So we have to ask ourselves, well, what is a protagonist? Boiling it down to its most basic level, a protagonist is a or the driving character through whom the reader or audience gets to experience the story. This means that the protagonist doesn't actually always have to be one of the good guys. The protagonist can be a villain. You could then just get the story from the villain's perspective. It can be very interesting. It's a little bit tricky sometimes, actually, to write a good villain that people want to root for. But you can absolutely do that. So the protagonist can occupy effectively whatever role you want them to occupy within your story. And so that means that even a monster can be the protagonist. However, in order to make that work, because monsters are not human, they're not something that we usually associate ourselves with, you need to make sure that the monster can become that avatar through whom the audience can experience the story, can understand it. And to do this, you have to find ways of making the monster relatable, or another word, sympathetic. Five says, I think I've got two of them, and maybe a trope that tends to happen to monster characters. Oh, very interesting. Nick says, also, yes, Mr. Lars, you totally predicted this from the very start. Psychic Lars is awesome, Lars. I wish I could claim that kind of powers. Here's the thing. A good historian While a good historian does not know exactly how the future will unfold, a good historian can plot out ways in which the future can unfold. And I looked to the cartoon universe, the connected cartoon universe, as Disney's last real chance to get themselves out of the gutter and show how much they loved animation. But the moment that they shut down Dana and scrapped any potential for the connected cartoon universe and went for cheap, chibi crossovers, I knew that they were screwed, at least on that front. So, yay. Anyways, back to the lesson. Here's something that we need to do in order to better understand how to turn our monsters into protagonists. We need to understand the different categories of monsters. And it's kind of silly that turning this into a PDF caused one of the images to cover up my script. Dang it. Well, in any case, there are, at least in my estimation, 4 main categories of monsters that you can utilize. Some that come with it already some built-in sympathy, and others don't. And depending on the type of monster that you want to utilize within your story, you will end up having to use different kinds of tropes or different avenues for making that monster a good protagonist. So we've got our human monsters. We have our monsters with human qualities. We have humans cursed into monsters. And I have that as a separate category because, as we're going to see, like, you can easily split hairs between monsters, and humans being turned into monsters easily becomes its own category. And then we have the absolute monsters, the monsters that have nothing even close to human qualities. So, Fabi says the Drurg, from a species of carnivorous fish that evolved to be weirdly merfolk-like. Well, that's cool. Got some good. That's a nice monster idea right there. So, our human monsters. What I mean by human monsters are effectively monsters that can be very, very easily mistaken for human, or they are humans who became monstrous. So, like, for instance, when you look at the upper right-hand corner, the mummy, a human who became monstrous. Wolfman, a human who became monstrous. Frankenstein's monster, many bits of humans who were brought together to create something monstrous. The Invisible Man, a man who has turned himself invisible and has been basically cursed to be a kind of monster. Renfield, a human who made himself subservient to Dracula and became a monster. Dracula, presumably at one point human in most stories, who then became a monster. The only one in this entire image who wasn't a monster is the swamp guy in the back, who has just happened to be born that way, but looks very human. And when you have monsters who either are or look very human, there's already a certain amount of built-in sympathy because we naturally sympathize with other humans. We're curious. We end up wanting to root for these guys even more because it's so much easier for us to see ourselves in them. And it doesn't matter if they're super grotesque or not. That human quality already makes us think about them, identify with them, try to connect with their plight and their situation, see the world through their eyes. Now that if it's an anime or manga, like you skip on down to Ogami Tsumiki, which is a fantastic manga. I'll just put this right here. Ogami's Not So Typical Life is the story. This, oh my gosh, Tsumiki Ogami is just such a great story. Highly recommend it. And one of the things that makes it very easy to relate to the werewolf girl or to the invisible boy or to the vampire boy or to the Oni boy in this story is because they just look so human. They're cute little human teenagers going through typical human teenage stuff. And that's, again, the thing. The human monsters feel like they can be human. And so one of the things you will typically find when you are using human monsters for your creatures in a monster story as the protagonist is that there's already this kind of built-in sympathy. And so what you're going to end up exploring more with these kinds of creatures is why, if they look so human, why is it that people see them as monsters? Why do people fear them? Why do people shun them? And that's typically where those kinds of stories go. Now, you can do something very different like Tsumiki Ogami, which instead focuses far more on just they're normal people and they're just living their normal life. There's no reason to be scared of them. So you can take this idea of the human monster as the protagonist in so many different kinds of ways. But one of the things that I would highly, highly recommend as far as understanding how to write any sort of monster as a protagonist is to focus on the relationships or the lack thereof. Relationships tell us a lot about who a character is, because through their relationships to other people, we find out what kinds of people they like being around, what kinds of people they don't like being around, which already, again, gives us something that we might be able to empathize with or relate to. It also helps us to better understand their just overall likes and dislikes, what their personality is. And through their conversations that they just naturally have with other characters, it gives us some great insights into their life and how they interpret their own experiences. So, like, for instance, a good way of taking this is like, let's say, let's dive on over here to Deltarune for just a brief moment, for this. So, if you have a monster, like let's say Susie, who has been moving around from place to place, feels very displaced, as she herself says, is like a forgotten, it's like a misplaced, forgotten toy, something that people just throw away. Say that's something that's already very, very sympathetic for us to see within this monster girl. Susie is not human. She's very clearly a dragon girl. But what she's going through is relatable. Now then, how Susie takes it, how Susie experiences it, and how she interprets her own experiences become very interesting. Because, for instance, when she comes to hometown, as we learn in chapter 3, Toriel found her crying in the graveyard and said, "Hey, you are going to make friends." She took her on over to QC's, helped her calm down a little bit, have a nice bite to eat. And yet, when she then got to school, she interpreted people giving her a wide berth as they don't like me. They do not like me. And Chris not getting close to Susie right off the bat, which the moment that Susie probably found out that Chris was Toriel's kid was like, wait a second, Toriel's so nice. Why isn't Chris being nice to me? And that's because Chris is just an awful person. They think I'm an awful person. Therefore, I don't like Chris. And so Susie took an experience, one for which we don't have the full context for. Probably was that Chris didn't get too close to Susie because shenanigans with the soul, shenanigans with Carol, probably still dealing with the friendship fallout with Noelle, and then add in how Birdley always acts really superior over Chris, and also Susie is totally Chris's fetish. That, like, you see the girl of your dreams or the guy of your dreams, you're not going to be all like, well, let me just already come up and talk to you. Most people are not like that. Most people immediately get shy and withdraw. Susie took all of that, which she didn't know, and interpreted as, Chris doesn't like me. Chris is just a bully like everyone else. Fine, I'll be the bully back to them. I'll be the bully to everyone. And so that's what I mean by the interpretation of an experience is very important for a character. And you come to understand how characters view themselves and their experiences largely through the dialogue that they have with other characters. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean by why it's so important to focus on the relationships that these monsters have or that they don't have, because that tells you a lot about who they are. TV content. I missed talk about Lackadaisy and Glitch collab because I think people are worried that the show might not be available on YouTube, but put in a streaming service and a paywall. TV account, yes, we did talk about that. And that's one thing I know a lot of people are worried about. The reason for that, just to very quickly recap what I talked about earlier, is that most likely a deal has been struck where everyone who is involved, the other YouTube studio, or well, not the YouTube studio, the Hollywood studio that they're working with, whoever that is, Glitch Productions and Iron Circus, aka Lackadaisy, all put in about $2 million worth of their own money, thereby allowing them to split various rights. Lackadaisy, under Tracy Butler, maintains full creative control. The studio gets to have exclusive streaming rights. And Glitch, I am almost positive, took the exclusive merchandising rights, because the real money is in the merchandising. That is what I think happened. We'll see what happens when the very next episode of Lackadaisy finally drops, because if the merch starts going wild with behind the scenes with Glitch, that means that Glitch maintained full control over the merchandising and that they are making up their $2 million investment in the show via the merch. And they can easily do that across 6 full episodes, for which they can have new merchandise with each episode. Woo! So yes, there will be a paywall, but it is a necessary sacrifice in order for them to get this thing done. And on top of that, if it does well as an indie production that has been 2/3 funded by indie creators and fans, if it does well on another studio streaming service, that will be a huge step forward for other indie creators in the future to be able to strike similar deals and maintain creative control to tell their stories. Now then, let me catch up with what Fabio was saying right here. So there is the Uemi, shapeshifting slime alien of the moldable species, the main face of his species, who does stage shows and basically PR to keep his species image accurate, which also does not mean clean. The trope I spoke of would happen to your custom character in one of my big games. Majority of people may know what you are, notice how your character responds, and see your character weirdly. So like they sort of eye you like a creature trying to act casual around other people. Very, very interesting. And I forgot to put sapient into Dreg's description. Well, thank you for all of that information there, Fabio. That sounds very, very interesting. So, moving on from human monsters to monsters with human qualities. My Little Pony? Yes, the My Little Ponies are technically monsters because they're magical talking horses, and things like that do not exist in real life. Neither do alien spider pirates, like Mr. Scroop from Treasure Planet. So, these kinds of creatures right here, these kinds of monsters, can be almost anything. They can look almost any kind of way. The thing is that they retain relatable human qualities, whether that mean relatable human features, relatable human interests, relatable human personalities. The fact of the matter is that Mr. Scroop feels like a scumbag that you would absolutely meet at work or on the street or on the bus. He feels real because he is depicted almost more human than he is alien. The My Little Ponies, with friendship is magic. I mean, one of the things that made these little guys so popular with the reboot was that people, young and old, male and female, found themselves easily identifying with these ponies. These ponies were going through things that felt extremely human and relatable. So therefore, even though they're weird, they're technically monsters. Yeah, sure, I'm going to watch a show with bright, colorful monsters going on friendship quests. Woohoo! So writing a human in an environment where humans aren't dominant can be similar to writing monsters. That is also very true, and that's a really, really neat take. I like that, ISO. That's it. And that would fit in very well, for instance, with human monsters, where like Chris in Deltarune is effectively a monster to all the other monsters. Or let's say that you've got a human who gets teleported on over to another world, which is entirely alien, and they happen to be the only human. Or like James Cameron's Blue Alien Avatar movies. The aliens, the alien invaders in this case, are the humans. They do not belong. They are referred to as monsters throughout the series, because that's effectively the kind of role that they play, which makes Jake Sully, the main character, a monster, and thereby a monster protagonist. TV Count says, really? But how will the fans who invested in the merch be able to watch it? Like, how is it going to be distributed? Like, are people going to have to go to the Seven Seas just to watch it? TV Account, we actually don't know. But here's the thing, though, is that in order to make this work, because we went through the numbers, they were going to be able to give us effectively what would be 2 episode lengths, 50 minutes, which is effectively $1 million per episode. Tracy Butler was going big. She was spending all of that money into making sure that quality went into each episode. But 50 minutes is not enough to cover the heart and breadth of even just the opening arc of Lackadaisy. So they needed funding in order to make this work. That's the price that you have to pay in order to make this happen. And that's a price that these creators felt willing to pay. Is it a betrayal? No. I gave my money on over to make Lackadaisy happen. I invested, what was it, like at least $200 into that Kickstarter. I'm getting my $200 worth. It's going to happen. Now, does that mean I might have to do like a 1-month subscription in order to watch this thing? Maybe, maybe not. Because chances are it's going to be most likely either on Netflix or on Amazon, which are the 2 production companies and 2 massive streaming companies that Glitch already has good relationships with. So, I mean, for some people, that might mean that it's behind a paywall. But for Netflix, that's a very small paywall. And for Amazon, that's almost no paywall at all, depending on the deal that you have with them. So, again, it's not entirely ideal, like being able to watch stuff for free on YouTube. But in order to make this happen, and in order to pave the way forward for indie creators, this is huge. And it's honestly a very small price to pay for the massive leap forward that this is. Nick says, well, if you count the bronies, those things actually exist. Oh, bronies. You know what? The crazy thing is this, is that technically speaking, I was a brony back in the day because I liked the show. Therefore, it made me a brony. I even have my own Rainbow Dash mug that I bust out every Christmas time to drink hot chocolate and hot cider from. Woohoo! Yeah, it makes me so angry that there are those really, really creepy fans that help to ruin such a fun show. Omega says, well, my family has Netflix and Amazon, so we'll be fine. Yeah, and it goes from person to person. TV Account says, I missed the answer. Can you repeat it? TV Account, because we are at this point in the lesson, you can rewind back a few minutes and listen to my answer. I've already said it now twice, so just know this is the price that must be paid in order to get indie animation to go forward. It's a brilliant move business-wise, and if you want the full breakdown that I gave, when the live stream is done, go back. It's about at the 45-50 minute mark in this live stream that I start breaking down the finances and everything about why this show is now being made the way that it is, and why it's going to a streaming service, and why this is actually a positive thing. Now then, 5 says, 2 is most likely where mine land, including Yuimi's, I pronounce it Ueem. Okay, so Ueem. Landing Ueem, naturally occurring existentialism over leading life as a liquid sapient being. Iso says, I was attracted to Applejack. Now I'm attracted to human Applejack. Oh, please lead me to the real Applejack. Oh, boy. Anyways. Coming back to monsters with human qualities. So, this, I would actually argue, is probably one of the easiest ways to write monsters as your protagonist, because you have the full range of freedom to create almost any kind of monster that you'd like, and to create all kinds of like monster societies, monster situations. And so long as you give them enough human qualities, then they feel immediately relatable to the audience. Say, let's see here, like, good, again, just good examples of this are the looking at My Little Pony, playing through Deltarune. Susie and Ralsei are monsters. They are main characters that people absolutely adore and identify with. There's loads of other examples of monsters being the main characters within stories, being the protagonists, and they don't look human, or they're far enough away from human that they are very clearly something else. And when I was writing my book, The Monarch Mercenaries Autonomy, as I was writing the first book, I was thinking about all of the different monsters that I can introduce in the second book. So, like in the second book, there will be a really massive fruit bat alien that I'm really excited to have in the story, because he's just going to be a sweet agent of chaos. Then there's also, well, in the first book, there's the weapons guy on the ship who's a part of the pirate crew. The guy in charge of all the weapons, Omegas, he's a large, strapping minotaur. I mean, while minotaurs have some human features, they're very clearly a monster. They are far more monsters with human qualities rather than monster humans. So Omegas will still be in the second book, and then we also then get introduced to his sister, who is bad news in all the best ways. So I was like, yes, I got to introduce these kinds of monsters. And then there are more human monsters, like one of the informants that helps out Captain Carsonius on his quest for revenge. There's this weird Velociraptor warrior that is trying to get in contact with Carsonius. There's all different kinds of strange creatures, and then things that are even just far more alien, like sentient blobs of goo that wear suits of armor or various appendages in order to at least be able to interact in a slightly human way with their surroundings and with their fellow pirates. Fabi says, I'd assume players of the custom character would say it has human qualities at a surface level from being controlled by them, but technically it wouldn't quite show those qualities the same way. All right. Now again, with monsters with human qualities, one of the most important things to focus on is the relationships that they have with other people, because it's in those relationships that we really get to see those human traits come forward beyond just the voice, the anthropomorphicness, if you decide to add that on in there, what have you. The human quality that people empathize with or sympathize with comes out in those relationships, because the relationships allow us to better understand these characters. Darkest Daydream says, yes, the dreaded Technicolor equines. Equestrians. Well, the equestrians are the ones who ride the horses. Anyway, moving on. Now we get into this group. Humans cursed into monsters. The reason why I have this set aside from simply human monsters is because humans who are cursed into monsters can become just about anything. So, like, for instance, Beauty and the Beast. And I love the way that Disney portrayed the Beast. He's like this weird bear bison thing, this bear bison monstrosity. He has anthropomorphic human features to a certain extent, But when you watch him move, the way he speaks and everything, the way he looks, all combines to just communicate this abomination. And the way that he acts in the beginning is just so monstrous in his personality. It's so vindictive, so awful, that it feels like he isn't even human at all. It was a great way to depict the beast. Another great human cursed into a monster is in Howl's Moving Castle. You have actually a couple of different examples of this. You have all of the wizards who transformed themselves by using too much magic into these goo monsters, and they're stuck like that because they've effectively given up their humanity for greater power and for greater destructive power at that. You then have the prince who's been transformed into Turnip Head, the Scarecrow, he's a scarecrow. Scarecrow looks slightly human, but that's about as close to human as he gets. And he can't speak, so Turnip Head has to communicate through the energy in his hops and through the things that he does with as limited action and movement as he has, which is just brilliant storytelling from Hayao Miyazaki. He did such a good job. And then Howl himself transforms into this horrible winged thing that never really solidifies into any one true form. He's always constantly becoming monstrous while then trying to turn back into a human. And so there's so many different ways that you can take humans being cursed into monsters in terms of looks that either might look more like a human or might look even more monstrous, and that their personalities, how they deal with these curses, might make them even less sympathetic than your typical human. And so that's why I kind of put them off into their own category, because of the very nature of how they became a monster and how monstrous they might be totally changes the dynamic and how you might write them. Now, this is one of the more popular approaches to making a monster a protagonist, because there's already an added layer of sympathy from the audience for the victim of the curse. Because we naturally want to see if they'll break it. We want to see if they'll be restored to their rightful selves. And so using the archetype of a cursed human to become a monster already allows you to just kind of have the best of so many worlds. It's a fantastic trope that already does a lot of heavy lifting for you, and you just basically have to build around that. So it's really nice to use as a writer. It's almost a lazy approach, but it's a great one if you know what you're doing, if you write it well. So it's an archetype that you will usually see for fairy tale stories and tales of redemption. And again, it's very, very important to see what kinds of relationships or lack thereof these cursed humans have. Now, something I want to point out is that you don't have to make it always a redemption story. You can use the fact that a human has been cursed into a monster to explore darker themes. You can make it into a cautionary tale. You can explore toxic relationships. You can explore the natural consequences of awful decisions and use the cursed human more as a lesson rather than as someone who must be redeemed. So you can take this in many, many different ways. You are not stuck to any one particular pattern or formula for any of these monsters, but especially for humans who are cursed into monsters. Fabio says, also thinking of that aspect of such a character, including anything about the most they affect the world through is your IRL controls. It definitely only came up in my mind after Deltarune. Oh, I guess the kid who possessed the forest I mentioned the last stream. Yeah, that was a really cool idea for a monster. I was in Counts as one of, I guess I was in Counts as one of these, but not as a protag. So I've got none of this category right now. Well, that's okay. That's okay. You don't need to turn every monster into a protagonist. And Shade is here. Great to have you here, Shade. Dark State Dream says, still a way better love story than Twilight. Oh, yeah. Oh yeah, Beauty and the Beast, way, way better than Twilight. Shay says, I have a question. Could we consider Yuji and Genya as cursed humans turned into monsters? Yes. It's right there in the story. And I don't think you even have to guess about that. Fabi says, I think I do have a bias against thinking about characters being cursed, even if I do have tragic stories in mind. Shade, sometimes it's good to become a monster power. They build defend people. Something like Tokyo Ghoul is a good example. Sometimes good to become a monster. And that is something that you can absolutely explore in a human's cursed to monster story. Again, you are free to explore all different kinds of avenues with these creatures. The most important thing is, again, to think about what makes a good protagonist. And to also understand that based on the type of monster that you choose, different opportunities are open to you, but also different kinds of expectations and different limitations. TV Cat says, unrelated question, but I noticed that your streams are up 2 days earlier. Is there a reason why? TV Cat, the reason why is because it's Halloween month. Things are crazy. I am going to be out of town, for instance, on Friday. I couldn't do the live stream on Friday. I can't do it tomorrow because I'm doing D&D, so I decided to do it today. Next week, I will do the live stream on Friday. That's the plan. And then the week of Halloween, there will be no live stream because I am going to enjoy my spooky week. All right, so moving on. Now then, our fourth and final category of monsters. Monsters that are not like us. This is where it gets tricky. Because creatures that have no discernible human qualities or features are very, very hard to make sympathetic. Good way of thinking about this is if you're dealing with a creature from cosmic horror or Lovecraftian horror, the idea of those stories is that you don't understand these creatures at all. Like Cthulhu. To understand Cthulhu is to basically make yourself go insane. So how can you see the story through Cthulhu's eyes? How can you make a creature like this your protagonist? I've seen certain manga and manhwa that have tried, and the sad thing is that most of the time those stories end up just changing the monster as fast as possible into something far more human or into a human, because that's the only way that they can ever think of turning something so just immense, so unknowable, so horrifying into something that is sympathetic or empathetic. And I would say I understand why that is the way that it is, but my argument still stands that if you understand who these creatures are or what they are, if you understand what drives them, if you understand the relationships that they have or the lack of those relationships, you can take a cosmic entity and you can make it a story driving protagonist. That is absolutely something that I believe, and it can be done. It absolutely can be done, and we'll go into a little bit of detail or some example for that here in just a bit. Fabi says, thinking of the Yuji Itadori angle, my dude Dave Bright does have a plot point of having a being try to possess him, but he sort of makes it relent. So, And Shay says, in Bloodborne, we kind of understand if you know alchemy and occultism, and if you know alchemy and occultism. Yeah. Again, Shade is pretty straightforward, I would say. Now then, here is our key, because I keep coming back to sympathetic, empathetic, but really the word that brings it all together is relatability. Because if you can relate to even a monster, even something like, Cthulhu, then there's a way for you to make that monster a protagonist that people can get behind. Because here's the thing, there's plenty of protagonists out there in fiction that people can't identify with because they're all like, this person's either way too important, way too smart for their own good, way too just everything, or they're so bland. I couldn't stand them. They're not relatable. They're either way too much or way not enough or way too little of just anything or everything. And interestingly enough, you can change even a cosmic monster into something that you understand. So Cthulhu or the Kraken? Oh yeah. Yeah, you can make those monsters your protagonists and even make them relatable. Shay says, I have a question. Would have a person become a monster like nothing at all? Like a human basically became Cthulhu or something? How to write it? Shade, if I understand your question right here, you're asking if you can have a person just become a monster like Cthulhu and how you're supposed to write that. So many ways you could write that. This person is a descendant of the ancient ones. This person is the vessel of one of the ancient ones. This person is a priest of one of the ancient ones, which then grants them and either they knew it or they didn't, but in either case, this suddenly now grants to them certain transformative powers and insights into the cosmic they were never supposed to have, and you can then just watch them go insane as they become the avatar of this thing. That's one way to go about it. Or you can just do isekai nonsense. They get isekai now, and suddenly they wake up as a monster. There's the interesting way. There's the lazy, quick way. There's all different kinds of ways that you could approach it. It all depends on the story you want to tell. Darkest Daydreams says, I was asking if the image you showed earlier was either Cthulhu or just a normal Kraken or both. That is Cthulhu. That is absolutely Cthulhu. You can see the arms off to the sides and that face and everything. The way it's coming out of the sky. That is Cthulhu. So, coming back to it, the key to making your monsters protagonists all comes down to being relatable. And what helps you to focus on making a character like a monster become relatable is you have to, this comes back to last week's live stream. You need to know what drives them. You need to know their motivations, why that is, what they do, their modus operandi, and change that into something that becomes, well, relatable, sympathetic or empathetic. For instance, if the motivations that guide a monster, if they are sympathetic, it usually means that they're more of a heroic kind of a being. If the motivations of a monster is more logical, it usually then tends to be a little bit more villainous and monstrous indeed. However, it always comes down to the kind of story that you want to tell. And then again and again and again, the relationships. What kind of relationships do these monsters have with individuals? With other races or types of beings? What kind of a relationship does the monster have with their environment? These tell us a lot about these characters. Helps us to better understand them, to better relate to them, and it provides a bridge of that gap between monster and human. I will make my monsters pay taxes. Oh, that sounds fantastic, Shade. You do that. Darkest Adrian says, taking into account each monster category, I'd say the major characters in my monster story, Wild Side, fit into the second category, monsters with human qualities. Oh, fantastic. Awesome. And Mimic says, this person is the result of a monster and a human doing the hanky-panky together. Oh boy, spooky. Yeah, roll out the Deltarune fanfics. Don't make me get the bat. All right. So, our writing challenge for you guys coming here towards the end of the lesson. Select a kind of monster. And some of you already know what kinds of monsters you're dealing with. Maybe you want to choose one that you've already written, one you haven't written, or if you're even not writing a monster story, but you want to try this out. Select a kind of monster. Either human monster, a monster with human qualities, a human cursed to be a monster, or a monster unlike us. And the challenge is, write a scene. You don't need to write a whole story or a whole chapter even. Just write out a scene that establishes an aspect of the creature that is relatable to the reader. And to show this, how you can do this for any one of these categories, let's have a look at some examples. So, let's see here. Let's start off with one of the big classics, and that is Frankenstein. Now, the monster is not called Frankenstein. He's Frankenstein's monster. Frankenstein's monster, in both the original Hollywood version with Boris Karloff and the original book, deals with a creature made from other human parts who wants to understand what it means to be human. In the book, Frankenstein's monster is all like, I just want to live a normal life, live as normal of a life as possible as a being who you made to basically be perfect. And so you have the perfect man monster going around living his life and angry at his creator for not loving him. Whereas the Frankenstein of Hollywood is a monster who realizes he's a monster, who looks absolutely ugly and hideous and horrifying, yet yearns for love and wants kindness, tries to show kindness, but other people just interpret it as him being villainous, as him being devious and dangerous. And what's relatable about this, sad to say, is that there's so many people out there who want to be loved, who want to fit in, who want to belong. But because of the way that they look, or because of their background, because of the way they speak, because of what they believe, they are not accepted into normal society. And they feel completely isolated. And that isolation can transform a person into a monster. And so one of the things that makes Frankenstein's monster so relatable is that he wants to be loved, like most of us do, if not all of us. And that even if we ourselves haven't been through that, we at least know someone who has been rejected by society, been ostracized by a group, put down by these other people, even though they did nothing deserving of that. And that's what makes Frankenstein's monster such a relatable character, and why he has been such an enduring character for over 100 years. Because that part of his story is so relatable. Then let's take a cursed human into a monster. We've got the Beast from Beauty and the Beast, as depicted here by Disney. Anger management. I mean, there's a lot of other things that we can use as far as like what makes Beast relatable. But one of the things that Beast has that is relatable is that this guy is a spoiled brat with anger management issues. And he's definitely not lovable in the first half of the movie. Absolutely not. And it's an issue that he's got to overcome. And what's so great about Beast's character development is that beginning when Belle makes her way into the West Wing when she's not supposed to be there, and he catches her right before she begins to pluck the rose, which would hasten his demise even faster. He rightfully explodes, but he takes it way too far, scaring Belle out of the castle, causing her to break her promise to be his prisoner. And you see it on his face that he realizes, I screwed up. His anger took him to the point where he has now lost hope. And that's something that I feel a lot of people can identify with. All of us have probably been at a point where we just felt so angry, where we then did something we shouldn't have. And then it feels like we'll never have the chance to make up for that. And there's this loss of hope. Now, the Beast does go and saves Belle from the wolves, and he gets a second chance. That second chance involves a shouting match between him and Belle as she's trying to help him out. And when he finally accepts that that's what she's trying to do, and she thanks him for saving her life, and he finally softens and says, "You're welcome," he realizes, I do have another chance, and I'm going to take it. And so with the Beast, you do have those issues of anger, that loss of hope, and that second chance, and that you take it. And so that is what makes Beast relatable. And then once he begins developing a friendship with Belle and then a romance with Belle, that makes him even more relatable because we understand that kind of a relationship. Hemig says anger management immensely spoiled in Stockholm Syndrome. Very relatable indeed. Oh man. I love how cinema therapy put this whole thing to rest, because they're like, yes, like from a clinical standpoint, this is actually what Stockholm Syndrome is. And no, it's not Stockholm Syndrome. But the joke will never die. Now then, to the bottom left, this is an interesting manga. It's a very interesting one right here. It's very demented. But I think it's worth the read nonetheless. This one is My Coworker is a Lovecraftian Horror. And the girl with the big blank eyes is a Lovecraftian monster who has murdered a person and has stuffed itself into her body. And so the guy, the deadpan dude right next to her is just like, he's like, this is such a dead end job. I don't know what I'm like. I'm just wasting away my life. I don't really care about anything. So I'm just going to go to work with this monster. Now the monster is one of the two main protagonists. And in this case, the monster, this is the interesting, the monster is just like, I was just bored. Like both of these characters are just bored. And this monster is just like, I was just bored. So I just thought I'd see what it's like to be a human. And it gets what it does everything wrong while trying to be a human. And basically, because it forms a relationship with this human, with its coworker, it then decides it'll stick around, because it's like, oh, there's someone else who's also bored, but it doesn't understand why he's bored. And so because it was always curious, it's sticking around out of curiosity. And so you get this really, really unique relationship where the human is becoming more and more invested with this monster wearing a hot chick's body, and then gets pulled into its shenanigans because it begins murdering people and just doing really demented stuff. And again, it's a hardcore story. And he begins to realize that if he doesn't help this creature somehow blend in as a human, he might get implicated as a murderer. And so it's just, it gets intense. And so the relationship that's then formed is one that was first born kind of out of mutual boredom and curiosity. And then is the monster's all like, this guy's interesting, I'm going to continue hanging out with him. And then the guy's like, I need to hang out with this monster, because if I don't, bad things are going to happen. And so it firmly establishes that this creature has some kind of personality. It's intelligent, it's learning, it's observing, it's interested in the guy. And as far as the guy on the other side of the relationship, he's like, I just want to live. I just want to live. I just want to live. As he gets reeled in even more into this horror story. Isa says, poor girl, she just dies and gets puppeted around the whole story. Yep, that's how it turns out. Oh, it gets even worse when the creature accidentally destroys the first body. It then goes and kills a famous actress and takes over her body. It's just like, wait, what? And then the guy's all like, everyone's going to, and that's when the guy's all like, I'm going to be blamed for the murder of a really famous person unless we get you back into it, unless we get you into another body. And it's like, fine, I can reconstruct the first body, but you have to help me out. And it's this horrifying ritual. Very Lovecraftian, and one of the two main protagonists is the monster. The girl will be all like, I love that. This is life. If I says, haven't read much, but let me guess, body horror. There's definitely body horror in the story, but it's not your typical body horror. It uses body horror elements to tell its overall Lovecraftian tale. And then we come around to Susie. I was tempted to use Noelle, but then I got lazy and just went with Susie. So with a character like Susie, Susie has gone through something that many people have, maybe not all of us, but many people have gone through, where they feel alone in a crowd. They feel rejected by society, and they might have turned towards bullying. Many people have at some point in their lives been a bully. Maybe not like a hardcore bully that's going around stalking their victims, but a lot of us have had, unfortunately, our own bullying moments. A lot of us have been bullied. And that immediately puts us into a situation where we can understand Susie. We may not like Susie at the beginning, but as the story goes on and we come to learn more about Susie, how she actually has always wanted to have friends, how she's wanted to belong. And when she's like, I'm actually the bad guy, but then she just loves being the good guy, it's clear she's always wanted to be the good guy. And that's something that, again, a lot of us can easily sympathize with, of either being the bully, unfortunately, and just as unfortunate, if not more unfortunately, being the bullied. Wanting something more for our lives, maybe not getting it until you just happen to find those right friends or that right circumstance. And so there's a lot about Susie that makes her a relatable character. Even though she's a monster. She absolutely is. No getting around that. But by the end of the story, such as it is, you feel for her. You understand her. You know where she's coming from. She has become relatable. Even if you don't like her, she is relatable. And that's an important thing with relatability, or even with sympathy or with empathy. That does not necessarily mean that the people have to like your character. Rather, that they can understand your character. And that's always the biggest problem with making a monster the protagonist, is that there is that wall, that gap, that chasm that must be overcome somehow to help people who are not monsters come to know who this monster is, and either come to like that monster or at least understand that monster. And through that allows you then to make that monster your protagonist. Now then, Shade asks, what is the name of the manga? My coworker is a Lovecraftian horror. There it is. Oh, Susie, why are you so mean? Oh, Noelle, why are you so mean? Oh, Temmie, why are you so mean? Was I Temmie this whole time? So, coming back to it, this is your writing challenge. To again, select a human monster or a monster with human qualities, or a human cursed to be a monster, or finally a monster that is just absolute, completely unlike any of us. And write a scene that establishes a relatable aspect of that monster. And if you can do that, you are already on your way to making your monster a protagonist within the story. Again, everything that then comes after that is, of course, everything that just takes to make a good character. The more monstrous you make your monster, the more difficult it becomes. But that's the hill you decided to climb. Kamen Rider plays with the trope where they often use the same source of powers as the villains, like in the original series, where he's just the monster or one of the monsters. Okay, so having that interesting link right there between heroes and villains through powers. Interesting. I like that. Now then, to answer your question there, Shade, about what is it? My coworker is a Lovecraftian horror. Not many chapters to it. One of them is behind a paywall because of cannibalism. Like I said, it is a very, very intense story. It definitely lives up to its horror. It definitely lives up to its place in the horror genre. But yeah, so there you have it. Say for me and myself, when it comes to writing, like what I have written in terms of monsters, at least as protagonist, I think that my character Bob the Virus is probably the closest to it, even though I would consider him more of a human, or at least human-like. But there's definitely a cursed aspect to him. If anything, he gets closer more to the concept of a human monster because of how he handles himself, how he's portrayed, his ability to transform, how aloof and dangerous and insane he is, with then these moments of human clarity and human empathy and sympathy for others within the story, which just really makes him throw you off your balance as the story goes on. But yeah, he's probably one of the closest I've gotten to writing a monster as a protagonist, except for my take on Beauty and the Beast, which is still right now only in its rough draft form. But I wrote a story where I wanted to tackle the idea of someone being told, like, okay, in order to break the curse, you must fall in love. Now then, let me just quickly pop back on over here to the slideshow. So here we got the Beast. There he is. There he is in one image. Here he is again. Very clearly a bear bison abomination mix. And yet, the way his eyes look, which, for instance, the movie draws really clear attention to, that his eyes are much like a human's eyes. He was once a human. And he possesses still a lot of human qualities. He was a lot of people's furry awakening. It's kind of hard not to like Beast by the end of the movie, or for some people to have even fallen in love with Beast. So when I wanted to write my own take on Beauty and the Beast, I wanted the Beast character to be so unlike a human that the prospect of falling in love with it would be almost impossible. And so Princess Vivian, who in this case in my story is the Beast, when you first meet her, it's a nightmare. She slips through the cracks of the dungeon ceiling like a tar, like soup, just sloshing onto the ground as then chunks of meat and strange monstrous bones flop down after that. And then it all just starts stitching itself together, boiling and roiling and building itself up to this monstrous slime tar-like form that just is... And if she even attempts to make something that even looks at least somewhat like maybe some kind of creature, is just this weird amalgamation of bones and muscle masses that don't fit. Think like the Nowhere King from Centaur World, but just even more wrong and bloated and lopsided. That is what Vivian looks like as the Beast. And her curse is meant to reflect the state of her own heart and soul. She's such a vile person that her outward appearance is just disgusting. And so, when you have that kind of a monster as one of your leads, how then do you make it where you can relate to such a creature? And how can anyone even fall in love with it? And my answer was, you don't. You don't. If you want to break that curse through love, you have to transform her first into something else. You can't just fix her through love. You have to first fix her as a person. And that's the story. And that's the mountain I've set for myself with that, which is one of the reasons why I haven't touched it in a while it's still in a rough draft form. But one of these days, I hope to actually finish it, and that's one of the stories I do want to present to publishers and be like, want to give me a chance? Hey, what do you think? What do you think? Nick says, and then the eldritch creature kills some attractive man and takes over his body, and then it becomes the best Lovecraftian yaoi of the century. Oh my coworker's a Lovecraftian horror, and he's hot too. Let's see here. 5 says, heroes and villains being monster species makes me think of Steven Universe. Hey, you know what? That's applicable, considering you have all those alien races, the gems being involved. Shade says, I mean, jujitsu, sorcerers, and curses technically the same. They use curse energy, and many times the story Gojo to a monster. A weekly think about it, we could consider any human monster. I think he's a robot, but he's very human, turned into a monster like vampire. Well, he's a robot, who just happens to be very relatable, almost as if he is a human. He says, no way, I guess. His transformation simply happened off screen, but he was turned into what is a monster to most human-like drones. Well, N was always a drone. N was always a drone. He was never a human. But he has very human-like qualities based on his own programming, whatever stuff he went through. Yeah, N is just, he's special. And we love him for that. He's a good doggo. So, whoop. So there you have it. That's been my writing lesson for how you can make your monsters into protagonists. And I realize I don't have any water next to me. Oh boy. So I'll have to wrap this up so that way I can do myself some favors and get hydrated once again. Say, over here in the desert, even though we've had some really beautiful weather recently, it still gets warm. You still got to make sure you keep yourself hydrated. Say, wherever you are at, I hope you guys are keeping yourselves hydrated as well. Take good care of yourselves. But I think with all of that said, that's basically covered everything that I've wanted to for today, covering the glitch announcement and then our lesson. Next week, we will have the lesson again on a Friday, and we will be dealing with vampires, how to write vampires. We're finally getting around to that. Say this Friday, there will be no live stream, so don't go. Don't say you can show up if you wish, hoping to see one, but unfortunately, I will not be here. I don't think anyone else from the Harem will be doing a live stream on Friday either, but my hope is by Friday to have a new video out, specifically focusing on if Death's Holiday is the night. And I'm coming at it from a very different perspective from most other theorists, because what I have uncovered in the game, it leads to something very, very different. Shade says, finally, do not forget your promise. Well, Shade, we're getting to it. It took me a year, but we're finally getting there. Last, do not forget Tsukihime and related stories to it. hey, Shade, if you want to get into Tsukihime, you can go on ahead. I get to talk about vampires the way I wish to talk about vampires, and we are going in the direction that I know already most other people who are like, no, this is how you do vampires, are going to be very unhappy with me. And I'm okay with that, because I personally hate the formulaic way in which so many people are like, this is how you must write vampires. I'm like, nah, screw that. If we're going to get creative here, we are going to have real fun with our vampires. So that will be my approach to it. Stay hydrated, not not pirated. We put the rat in pirate. Thank you, Rizzo. And Shay says, I not drink water for 3 days, still alive. Well, if you keep yourself hydrated, you can remain alive, but water is definitely the better way to go. All right, everyone. So that has been it for this live stream. And yeah, I will be seeing you guys soon here in the next video. So until then, everyone, take care wherever you are at. Hope that you have a wonderful day, morning, evening, wherever you are at. And until next time, tschüss.